"You walk like you own the air in this room," the waitress said, her voice low but steady as she set a tray on the polished table. The man in the tailored suit turned slowly, a smirk tugging at his lips. He was known as untouchable, powerful, feared in every deal he touched. Yet here was a woman in an apron looking him in the eye without trembling. He leaned back in his chair, his tone dripping with arrogance. "Do you know who I am?" She tilted her head slightly, her reply calm but sharp. "I know exactly who you think you are." His smirk faltered for a split second before he forced it back. The crowd around them shifted awkwardly. No one dared breathe too loudly. He waved a dismissive hand. "You are just a waitress, carrying plates. My power builds empires." Her words cut through his laughter faster than any blade. "Then why is it that your empires tremble when truth walks in?" She let the sentence linger heavy in the air, the other guests glancing between them with wide eyes. The man's jaw tightened, his ego bristling, but he found no clever answer. For the first time, someone had spoken to him without fear, and the power he thought unshakable slipped from his grasp like sand through open fingers. The man's fingers tapped the edge of his glass, too fast, betraying the calm mask he tried to wear. He leaned closer, his voice sharp enough to slice. "You don't understand power, little girl. I can end your job, your future, your whole name with a single call." The waitress didn't blink, her tone steady enough for every ear in the hall to catch. "Then do it, because a future built on silence is no future at all." Her words hit harder than his threat, a ripple of gasps moving through the tables. The guests had always watched him command fear, but tonight they watched him choke on it. His smirk wavered, the sound of his own heartbeat suddenly louder than the chatter he once controlled. He straightened in his seat, searching for an audience that no longer belonged to him. The waitress placed the tray down carefully on the table and continued with a calmness that burned. "Your power ends the moment people stop believing in it. Respect is the only thing that lasts, and you don't even own a piece of it." The hall fell silent, the chandeliers above flickering in the stillness. The man who thought he was untouchable sat speechless, stripped of every ounce of pride, while a woman in a plain apron spoke truths no empire could bury. The man rose abruptly, his chair scraping back the sound, grating against marble like thunder. His face flushed, but his eyes darted around the room, desperate for someone, anyone to defend him. Yet the crowd that once hung on his every word now avoided his gaze. Every guest had heard the waitress's truth, and none could unhear it. He tried to gather his pride, squaring his shoulders. "I built everything you see with my own hands," he declared loud enough to shake the chandeliers. She stepped closer, her voice calm but carrying further than his shout. Then, "Why do your hands tremble when someone finally speaks the truth?" The room gasped, the question hanging heavy, the man's fists curling, but his knuckles pale. He opened his mouth, but nothing came, only silence thick and suffocating. His empire of fear had no power here, not against a single woman who dared meet his eyes without flinching. She leaned closer, just enough for only him to hear, yet the weight of her words carried through the silence. "You call yourself powerful, but power that demands. Respect is weakness. Real power earns it." The man's chest heaved, his ego cracking with every second. He realized too late that in front of everyone, his throne had been pulled out from under him, not by rivals, not by kings, but by a waitress with nothing to lose and everything to say. The man's face drained of color, his pride hanging by a thread. The hall was so quiet that even the clink of a fork being set down sounded like thunder. The waitress stepped back, but her words still rapped. Around him, tighter than chains, she looked him in the eye. One last time, her voice calm, yet sharp enough to cut. You thought you were powerful, but tonight you learned that true strength doesn't come from fear, it comes from respect, and you have none. A wave of whispers swept through the guests, some nodding, others clapping softly until the sound swelled through the golden hall. The man stood, frozen, his ego shattered, no words left to cover the cracks in his pride. The weight of her truth left him smaller than he had ever been, smaller than the apron he once mocked. The waitress turned, placing her tray on a nearby table, and walked toward the door. Her steps were steady, her head high. The room parted for her, not because of her uniform, but because of the power she carried in her truth. Each guest felt it. Each guest knew they had just witnessed the fall of a man who thought he was untouchable. The man remained standing in silence, his reflection in the glass, behind him showing not a king, but a shell of one. And as the door closed behind her, he understood that his empire had been shaken not by money, not by rivals, but by words he could never forget. If this story moved you, share it so others never forget that one selfless act can rewrite a destiny in ways no one sees coming.